Hey there, guys. I wanted to drop in real quick to talk to you about a brand new offer that I've put together just for you. It truly is going to revolutionize the way that you do business. I am offering a 90-minute strategy session that's also going to give you a visual roadmap that will guide you over the next 6 months to be able to accomplish any author goal you want to make happen. So here's the thing, we all need some one-on-one guidance sometimes. And the whole idea behind this is to give you the one-on-one personalized experience that you're really craving and get you on the road to your greatest success, right? That's all we really want for you. So if you're curious about how this is going to work, head over to authorrevolution.org/visual map and learn more about it today.
Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast, where change is not just embraced, it's celebrated. I'm Carissa Andrews, international best-selling author, indie author coach, and your navigator through the ever-evolving landscape of authorship. Are you ready to harness the power of your mind and the latest innovations in technology for your writing journey? If you're passionate about manifesting your dreams and pioneering new writing frontiers, then you're in the perfect place. Here, we merge the mystical woo of writing with the exciting advancements of the modern world. We dive into the realms of mindset, manifestation, and the transformative magic that occurs when you believe in the impossible. We also venture into the world of futuristic technologies and strategies, preparing you for the next chapter in your author career. Every week, we explore new ways to revolutionize your writing and publishing experience. From AI to breakthrough thinking, this podcast is your gateway to a world where creativity meets innovation. Whether you're penning your first novel or expanding your literary empire, whether you're a devotee of the pen or a digital storyteller, this podcast is where your author revolution gains momentum. So join me in this journey to continue growth and transformation. It's time to redefine what it means to be an author in today's dynamic world. This is the Author Revolution podcast, and your author revolution starts now. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the Author Revolution podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since I've done this, guys. I don't even know if I can remember how to do this. No, I'm just kidding. It is like innate. It's ingrained in my brain at this point. Well, after 3 weeks of vacation, it was almost 3 weeks anyways, I'm back at it. My brain is starting to engage, and I am here again with a brand new podcast interview with someone who is just absolutely incredible. So I'm bringing on today a guest. Her name is Bonnie Dillabough. She's a 70-year-old Army veteran, a mom of 6 kids, grandmother, great-grandmother, writer, and marketer. Now, she has spent time as a broadcast television professional. She was a professional clown, and she's also made a living with marketing online for over 20 years. But now she's decided to write books, and she's in the middle, well, actually toward the end, of writing her 9-book series, which is called The Dimensional Alliance. And what's really interesting about talking with Bonnie is that not only has she had a very interesting life, she's extremely proficient at being able to explain the process of writing, the process of publishing. Even though she only started publishing 5 years ago, she didn't get to her dream goal of writing books until she was 65 years old. And she's suffered a lot of adversity along the way in order to make all of this happen. So guys, if you want to listen to someone who's truly fascinating, not only we touch on so many topics, I kid you not, we're going to be talking about things like going through adversity. We're going to be talking about being an eavesdropper. We're going to be talking about her 3 steps to crafting your novel after you've already finished it. Also, we've talked about, and we're going to be touching on things like what makes books different to market, what unique ways you can use bookmarks, for instance, when you're out and about, or even how to create a sell sheet for bookstores. Now, guys, there's a whole ton of things that we are going to go into and uncover. Bonnie was a fascinating guest, and I know you're going to think she is just as fabulous as I do. So without further ado, let's get into it. Well, hi there, Bonnie. Welcome to the Author Revolution podcast. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Now, before we get started, do you want to tell my audience a little bit about who you are and what you write?
Sure. I'm mom of 6, a grandma of 22, and a great grandma of 4 with one on the way. And I've always wanted to write a book. And when I was 16, I was sure I was going to be a famous novelist someday. And then life happened and one thing and another, but currently I am an author of a science fiction fantasy series called The Dimensional Alliance. And there are, at this moment, as we tape, there are 7 books in the series. There will be 8 in May, which will be just before this airs. And I'm planning on finishing the series before the year is out, because once I got started, I couldn't stop. But it's a science fiction fantasy series about a young woman who inherits a house, a cat, and a key from an aunt she's only met twice in her life. Turns out the house has a room in it that couldn't possibly be there. The cat is not a cat. The key doesn't fit any of the locks in her house, but unlocks adventures in the multiverse and teaches her things about herself she never thought was possible.
How cool
It's a
is that?
it's a family-friendly series. There's
Okay.
no spicy scenes or unfortunate language in my books, because I made a vow when I first started writing that I would never write a book that I couldn't read out loud in front of my grandchildren without embarrassment. So,
Love it.
lots of adventure, lots of cool things going on in these books, and hopefully also some principles that people will learn through the journey of my characters that will help them navigate some of their quests in life.
That is so cool. Now, are you considering this series to be a YA series, or
A
what do you think
lot of
it is?
people categorize it as YA, and I agree that it is totally appropriate for those age groups. But I have fans from age 13 to 83,
That's so cool.
and I think that it, like every book, it isn't a book for everybody,
Sure.
right? We
Yeah,
all know that we have our favorite genres and genres that we prefer not to read. Okay.
for sure.
And I'm a bookaholic. I read a lot of different genres and I love to read, but I tend towards science fiction and fantasy. Those are my 2 favorite genres. If you're into intense murder mysteries, this isn't the book series for you. Although there are some things that happen. If you're into erotica, or, one of the genres that has a lot of violence and things like that, these probably aren't the books for you. But if you like a read that hopefully will make you feel encouraged
Mhm.
and still have adventures
Yeah.
with these characters, then this might be something you might want to read.
That's so cool. I love when that can be the case too. I think fantasy and science fiction really lets us explore those elements that we're missing in life right now. And obviously the world's a little bit crazy and can get a little bit intense at times. And so
Mhm.
having that opportunity to envision a world, or an alternate version of reality differently, and be able to have a storytelling that allows you to be encouraged. I think that's one of the most powerful tools we have. It's one of the reasons why I gravitate also towards that genre, because it's just so there's so many possibilities to explore with it.
Well, and one of the key components of every fantasy novel you've ever read is the quest,
Mhm.
right? And I've incorporated a quest into this, aka, I don't know, Lord of the Rings, my very first major fantasy series that I ever read back in high school.
Sure.
And well, and I read it out of order because I read the series first and then I read The Hobbit, which was kind of fun and silly, but it was recommended to me by a friend. He
Yeah.
said, Bonnie, you should really read this. You would like it. And I'm like, okay, I go check it out at the library, which I did. And I was a library nerd long before there were computer nerds. When somebody would come to the library and the librarian was busy, they'd come see me, say,
Yeah.
Bonnie, where can I find this, that, or the other thing? Because I practically had the Dewey Decimal System memorized.
That's so cute.
Um, yeah, well, and these days, of course, that's so unnecessary because you got all these little computer terminals in the various libraries and like that. Although librarians are still awesome sauce.
Oh yeah.
Libraries are some of my favorite places on the planet, that and bookstores. But the idea of a quest is that it takes more than one hero to make it work,
Yep.
right? So in a quest, you have a number of people who come together all with different skills, different backgrounds, different levels of commitment, etc., in terms of their commitment to the shades of gray as to what is okay to do and what's not okay to do.
Yep.
And so you have these people come together, they don't always agree. And like that, but they're all focused on one thing, and that's to do something good in their circumstance, whether that's a world or outer space or whatever. And so that quest, it's like Star Trek was based on a quest, right? To boldly go where no man has gone before, or woman in that case too. But the
Yep.
point is I really love books that have a point,
Yes, me too.
And so you read any of the classics like the Narnia series or Lord of the Rings, or Orson Scott Card has some amazing books out there, including Ender's Game, which is very famous, but he's got some other ones that are just amazing. And they all have a point, a reason, so that when you get to the end, you can have the satisfaction of saying, mission accomplished.
Yes, yes.
You know,
Ender's Game is one of my son's favorite books. He likes the movie as well, but the book was so well done. So well done.
The book is always better. Let's face
Yeah,
it
yeah.
always is. If the day ever comes when somebody wants to make a movie out of my series, I'm going to actually be a little hesitant, because I've seen what some producers and screenwriters have done to some of my favorite books.
Yeah.
Although there are some that are pretty true to the story and the feeling, but I've seen some others that I just shake my head and go, oh, that's really sad.
Right. Yeah, I have a couple of those as well. Where you're just like,
Well, just for one really stark example for me was, I was really excited when they said the Wheel of Time series was going to come out.
mm,
And I'm a big fan of that series. I've read it several times. Actually, I've lost count of how many times I've read it, but by the third episode, I was done with it, because they were already going completely off the path. And I'm like, that's sad, because Robert Jordan did a beautiful job of tying all these amazing characters together. There were probably about 20 main characters in his books, but you never felt confused about who was what and what they were doing or anything like that. And I really
that's
loved that about
good.
his books.
Yeah, I worked in a bookstore when Robert Jordan was putting out, he was still like, I don't know, I think 4 books in maybe
Mhm.
into the Wheel of Time series. I haven't read them myself. So the show is good for what it was. Like I actually I love some of the elements that are in the show, and it makes me want
If
to
you've
read the
never read the
books.
books,
Yeah.
then the show is fine. But if you have, it's
Okay.
just,
You're like, no, not like that.
right? But here's the thing. I've often thought about working in a bookstore and rejected that idea, because I
It's
knew
not
I'd never
good.
make any money if I did.
Yeah, it's not good.
Because I'd spend all my paycheck on the next batch of books that came in. But yeah, when Robert Jordan passed away, I was in the middle of book 11, and I'm like, no. But Brandon Sanderson took it over and did a beautiful job of finishing out the series in Robert Jordan's voice, which I was really astounded by,
That's
because later
fantastic.
I read Brandon Sanderson's books and they're nothing like Robert Jordan's stuff.
Mm. Yeah,
It's
isn't that
interesting.
interesting? Yeah, it's interesting how authors can take on, another author's tone, another author's inflection, how the series is split. And sometimes it's
Their
the book, I
rhythm and their
swear.
cadence and all of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just didn't feel like, when I got into books 12 and 13, I didn't feel like I'd been betrayed.
Good.
You know,
Good, good.
I felt like Brandon took the heart of these books, and of course he'd been a fan of the books before. And you know what, that's one thing about writers, right? We're
Mm.
all bookaholics.
Hmm.
I saw
And if you're not, you should be.
I saw a post on Quora that says, do you have to be a reader to write books? And I just laugh, because I can't imagine any writer whose books I love who wasn't an intense and voracious reader.
Right?
you know.
To me, that's
Uh,
just like unfathomable. It's like, how would you even, no, first of all, why would you even want to write if you're not interested in books? And second of all, like we subconsciously pull in so much of storytelling, of cadence, of plot points. Like it gets ingrained into our subconscious to the point where it's like when we learn it, then it's just like, oh, of course, this makes sense because I've read it so many times. Now
mhm.
I see what they were doing.
Right.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was one of the first things when I first started writing these books. I went back and reread all of my absolute favorites in the sci-fi fantasy genre with a new perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of just reading to enjoy them, which I always do, I read them to say, why do I love this book so much?
Mm, yep.
What are the elements in this book that pull me on? What are the things about how things are described and how the plot arcs, you know, go and all of those things? Because there are plot arcs within plot arcs in every book. As we know, every chapter has its own little mini arc.
Yep.
And so how did they make me care about those characters so much?
Right.
And, you know, I have to say, and I've noticed this with other authors as well, that my more recent books are better each time
Oh,
than
yeah.
the first one that I published. And even though it's on the same topic and the characters are the same and all of that, it's still, I find myself improving as I understand more fully the giants on whose shoulders I stand
Right.
as an author now.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. Every book that you write, every time you publish, it's like when you first do that first book, you don't know what you don't know. And so it's like this just discovery process of like, what is this like? How does this get to work for me? And then you start to refine how it does work for you and how it feels. And like, then you start incorporating more of what you're learning. And
Mhm.
it snowballs from there. It's so great.
Well, and the other half of that is now you type the end. Now what do I do?
Yep.
And for me, I had to make a decision. Do I go the traditional publishing route or do I independently publish? And I chose to independently publish because, let's face it, I was old. I published the first book 2 weeks before my 64th birthday. I didn't have time to wait 6 years to finally find a publisher and get published. So I took it on, thinking to myself, yeah, well, I've been a marketer most of my life. I know how to market things. I'll sell millions of books and it's going to be great. And so I managed to make pretty much all the mistakes you can make as an independently published author, starting with publishing on Amazon. Don't get me wrong, for the right author, Amazon is a great publishing platform. But if you want your books in libraries or in other bookstores, publishing in Amazon might not be your best choice.
Or at least only in Amazon. Yeah.
Right. Well, but see, if you publish through a platform such as Ingram Spark,
Hmm.
now you get to publish on Amazon, but not be held on to by Amazon and held back
Yes.
by Amazon. And
Yep.
so I had to learn the publishing industry while I'm writing all these books like crazy.
Right.
I published 7 books so far. It'll be 8 actually here in May over a 5-year period of time.
That's great.
Once I got started, it was like eating peanuts. I couldn't stop. But the thing
Great
is,
analogy.
yeah, I mean, I was just really charged with it and moving forward. And besides, like I said, I'm old.
You
My
were not
daughter,
old.
when she read the first book, she goes, okay, Mom, you're not allowed to die until you finish this series. And
And
I'm
now
like,
you're like,
okay.
maybe I should drag this out then because what?
Well, I've already got another series waiting in the wings. So
Okay, good,
a
good.
different, a completely different topic and everything else. I have a whole list of plot lines that I've been holding on to for years and years and years and years.
Yeah,
So the word infinity is in every single one of the titles of my current books series
love
because I
it.
have an infinite number of stories to tell.
Right? That is so
So
good. So
and
good.
and the here's the cool thing about this. I call it pretending on paper because I never have to grow up.
I love it.
When I was a kid, pretending was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And I listen to my grandkids. We live in a multi-generational household, and so I hear them playing and stuff, and they're pretending to be this, that, or the other character in their favorite, whatever. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, that brings back so many memories. But I can exercise my imagination, and that keeps me young. It keeps me from thinking I'm at the end of my years. No, 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 no. I'm starting a whole new adventure. And
Yeah.
as long as I get to stay on the planet, somebody joked with me the other day and they said, you know, Bonnie, they're going to be wheeling you to the mortuary and you're going to be working on your next plot.
Cute.
Um, but you know, once and I have to say it is addictive. And
Yeah.
it's such good therapy, isn't it?
It is.
You
Yes.
know, you can work out your frustrations. You know who that villain actually represents, right? Even if you
Right.
didn't give them the same name, right?
Yes.
And so you can take it all out on that villain. But you also know the people you admire in your life, and you want to exemplify those things in your good guys, right?
Yeah.
You also know the quirky ones, you know, the ones that you kind of go, huh? When they're talking or doing things, and those find their way. There's a t-shirt I really want to get. It says, "Warning, I'm an author. You might find yourself in one of my books."
Yep. Yep.
And because it's true. I mean, somebody said, "Where do you get your characters?" Well, duh. People I've lived with all of my life, people I've met, people I've wanted to meet. You know, the
Yeah.
fodder is around us every minute, right? And
It
so
is.
when your imagination lights up and you go, okay, so I need a character that's about to do this thing. And you go, I remember fill in the blank name. I won't use one just in case I accidentally use somebody I shouldn't. I remember such and so doing so and so thing. But there is one scene in my books that my children recognize automatically. And only one of the names was changed. And it was basically, it had to do with our cat
Okay.
when the kids were growing up, and a confrontation the cat had between the cat and a dog, a Great Dane that lived in the neighborhood and terrorized all the kids. And the cat stood up to the dog.
Oh my gosh.
And so the scene is in the first book, and my kids are going, Mom, we were there when that happened. Not all the scenes that I have in my books actually happened.
Right.
And caveat, all names have been changed to protect the innocent. But that being said, I went to a special event this last week where we were talking to various organizations that help in our community. And one of the guys' name, and I'll say his name right out loud here because I already told him I was going to do this. His name was Nulf.
Okay. Like golf, but with an N?
Nulph.
Okay.
Nulf. And I'm like, I love your name. And he's like, and I said, no, no, you have to understand. Can I have permission to use your name in one of my books? And he's like, sure. Oh, okay. Because it was just so unique. And I like the
Yeah.
sound of it. And I could already picture a character with certain qualities
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that came to me by just the sound of that name. And so, you know, we pulled, you know, I like to mentor aspiring authors. And one of the things I tell them is start listening to the conversations around you.
For sure. Yeah.
Be an eavesdropper in the nicest possible way, because you will hear and learn speech cadences. You will learn rhythms of conversation back and forth. You will learn what are the kinds of things that people just talk about when they're just hanging out with their friends.
Yeah.
Okay. Because people talk about, oh, I struggle with dialogue. I struggle with dialogue. Stop writing and start listening. Do that first. You know, the other big thing that I hear aspiring authors struggle with is writer's block. And almost every single time I'll ask them this question. So when you're writing, do you edit while you write? Are you constantly, oh, I spelled that wrong, or that's a typo, or I should have put a comma there, or you go back and you read that paragraph and you try to rewrite it? And almost every time the answer is yes. One
Right.
of the largest things that causes writer's block, because we have two sides of our brain. And the side of our brain that we write with is not the same side of our brain that we edit with.
Yep.
And as soon as we start critiquing what we've written before it's finished, all of a sudden the magic, the muse, whatever you want to call it, just disappears.
Right. The flow
Or
stops.
as JK would say, it disapparates.
Yes.
Right? And so we need, as writers, to first get it out of our gut. Get that story down on paper, right? Then go back and craft your story. The word edit is a 4-letter word. I think it's a 4-letter word for a reason. Most people are uncomfortable with it, and it sounds a little bit too much like work, right? But
It does sound like work.
crafting your story is a whole nother thing. Just like a cabinet maker makes the rough shell and then goes back and smooths it and adds detail and carves and adds just the right knobs and scroll work and everything to create a beautiful piece of art. As a storyteller, we need to, first of all, get the story out of our heart or out of our gut, as the case may be. And then we go back and lovingly, first of all, check for the typos and all that kind of stuff. Fortunately, there are a lot of tools that'll help you with that. Secondly, go back and say, now, is the story consistent? I have two characters. One's name is Bob and one's name is Bert, and I'm constantly switching them when I mean one instead of the other. So I have to go back and correct all the Bob and Bert errors. But also, is there an inconsistency someplace where you said one thing over here and said something completely different over here and they don't match? And then go back a third time and say, now, flow. Does this feel like something I'd like to read out loud?
Yeah.
Because one of the things I do is I have the word read it to me while I'm editing.
Yep.
So I can feel that and correct things and adjust things. Then I turn it over to a copy editor. If you are independently published or not, this is a vital step. It is an investment. I agree, but like any business, investment is necessary, and writing is a business. And so get a good copy editor and then get it back and do another edit. Go through their edits, see if you agree with all of them, because you might not always agree. They might read it slightly different than you do. See if you agree with all that. Then I do a final edit with all of that stuff behind me and just read the book like I was reading it.
Like a proofreading of it, right?
Yeah.
Final proofread.
Final proofread, but read it with the idea that I'm the reader now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turn it over to my beta readers. They do some other cool and interesting stuff with it and ask questions and whatnot. Then I publish. If that sounds like a lot of work, it is. But one of the issues with independently published authors is they type the end and then publish.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And there's no such thing as a perfect first draft. It's a unicorn. It does not exist. Okay. So, that's my process. But when you hold this thing in your hand and it has your name on it and it has your words inside, there is the only thing I can think of that is similar is holding your newborn baby for the first time.
Right.
And then when you start getting feedback from readers saying, I love your book, I couldn't put it down, it made me happy, it made me think, all of those kinds of things.
You've done your job. Yeah,
That's the reason.
it really is. Oh my gosh. Well, Bonnie, and your journey has been really interesting because you faced significant personal challenges, including health battles from what we had discussed and what I've uncovered about you. You had a life-altering adjustment, and you've had to use a wheelchair to becoming obviously this successful author of your series that's about to be a 9-book series total. Do you want to share some of how these adversities help shape your approach to storytelling and character development? How did that adversity really drive you forward?
Well, here's the thing. Life is a bumpy road. It just is. But the scenery's worth it. I have to say that I wanted to be an author for the majority of my life. But life happened. I went into the military. I met my husband. We had 6 kids. I've had all kinds of adventures. I've been a professional clown. I did 15 years in broadcast television and. Okay. And I had a thriving business that got tanked through no fault of my own. And my husband and I actually were homeless. We ended up with nothing left of all the things we collected in our marriage, but 2 suitcases and my laptop.
Oh,
That was it. That was all we
wow.
had left. What I learned from that is stuff is just stuff.
Mm.
And what really counts is the relationships you've created. Because although we were homeless, we weren't on the street. People let us sleep on their couches. And eventually we were housed and whatnot. Immediately following that, I ended up losing all the toes on my right foot due to gangrene, found out I was diabetic, was finally getting done with that. And then I found out I had breast cancer. I did breast cancer twice.
Wow.
But here's the thing about that. You learn stuff. You learn how to be compassionate to other people. You learn how the other half lives. Until I was in a wheelchair, I had no idea what that felt like. I had no idea the roadblocks that are put in the way of people with various physical challenges. Over the years, I've lost close friends who passed to the other side, and lots of other things. This gives me compassion and identity with my characters.
Mm.
Some of my characters go through some rough things in my books. It wouldn't be a story without it. And I think that's something that we can focus on as individuals, is recognizing there is no story without some conflict, without some challenges, without things that you have no control over that happen in your life. But you get to choose how you're going to deal with that. You know, I've gone through some depression. I've gone through some difficult times, but I have a basically cheerful, optimistic personality. But I've been through stuff that taught me that why not everybody does,
Oh, for sure.
you
Yeah.
know? And so over the course of, it'll be 70 years in May. Over the course of 70 years, what I've learned is life is amazing. Human beings are awesome. And we have a tendency not to treasure our experiences as we should, because everything that happens in our life can teach us something if we allow it to,
Yes. Yes.
you know. And so I don't know what's in my future yet. I've got another series planned after this one, and I'm already having one of the things that happens, I don't know if this happens with you, but I have characters visit me in the middle of the night with, hey, you know what? We should try this. And it's like, you couldn't have done that while I was sitting at the keyboard.
Right?
But it happens, and you get so connected to those characters that they start feeling very real to you.
Mm.
And when they start feeling real to you, it's a lot easier to know what they're going to do next and
Yep.
how they would handle a given situation.
Yeah.
But you can also base it on the things you've been through yourself and with other people,
I
you
totally
know?
agree with that. Yep. Absolutely. So I know that there are a lot of people who dream of becoming an author one day. And you said that, life experiences have, for a short time. I mean, I'm going to consider it a short time because you came back around, you know what you're doing now. You're embracing your authordom as it was always meant to be. But do you have any advice for people who are allowing kind of life circumstances to hold them back? Anything that you would offer them?
Definitely. Well, the two hardest parts about writing a book are starting it and finishing it.
Mm.
Okay. So I'll give you the same advice that I got from Mercedes Lackey. I was fortunate to do an interview with her. She's another one of my favorite authors, and she's a very straightforward individual. She says it like it is. But she did an interview with me. We turned off the recording, and then afterwards, we just chatted for a bit. And this was during the time that I was struggling with the fact that I was going to be in a wheelchair and what was I going to do because there was all these things I couldn't do anymore and on and on and on. But I very timidly said to her, I've been thinking about writing a book. And she leaned herself up into the camera like this. And she said, so put your butt in the chair and write.
I love it.
Best advice I've ever gotten, because that started my journey. I said, okay. I've sent her copies of my books.
So good.
Starting is important. Finishing, getting to the end is important. And then recognizing the value of what you've already done to the point to where you take the time to craft it and then publish it. And there are two possibilities. You can go to the traditional route, which means find yourself an agent, and the agent does most of the work at that point. And be patient.
Right.
And then, but you're still going to have to promote your books. That's just a thing. Or you can be chief cook and bottle washer by
I love that.
publishing
That was
yourself.
so good.
My grandpa used to say that. And you can publish yourself, and you're still going to have to promote your books. There are so many wonderful ways to do that. And maybe that's a conversation you and I can have in a future thing about, okay, so we've got all this stuff done. Now I'm published. What do I do next? How do I help people find my books?
Well, that was actually a question I had for you, where when I was looking things up about you, that you had your first website up in 1996 and have been online marketing for over 20 years. So the question I had for you was, how do you think the digital evolution has impacted the way authors currently connect with their audience and market their books today compared to maybe what you would have done or seen when you first started?
Absolutely. Well, here's the difference. Number one, we can get lazy with our promotions and think we can just put up a few things, put up a website, and bada bing, bada boom, all of a sudden money's going to start coming in. That's just not the case. Also, books are different than any other product I have ever marketed in my life. Because one of the key things to having people find your books is creating relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Not, hey, look at me, I'm an author, I wrote a book, buy my book.
Yeah.
No, you need to reach out to your audience. You need to find your audience. And this is actually a basic thing that's always been in marketing and continues to be part of the digital revolution, is that you need to put your stuff in front of the people who want it, who already want it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to get your stuff in front of the people who love your genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
And who are maybe interested in you personally. It's a good place to start is with your family and friends, right? But when it comes down to it, you need to find ways to get in front of other people, because I find I sell way more books by talking to somebody directly than by just putting an ad up someplace. But guesting at places where you can talk about your books, like in my case, fan conventions, and doing panels, speaking to writers groups, getting engaged with your library and doing some author talks. And there are people out there right now who are cringing at that because writers tend to be a little bit introspective and don't tend to necessarily be, quote, people persons. You're going to need to learn. Unless you've got a big budget and a great publicist, you're going to need to learn to talk about your books. One of the things that I found that is key, my husband and I travel on bus a lot. And this requires a little bit of preparation, but it works really well for me. And now I have a series, and if you have a single book, not all of these pieces will work for you, but bear with me. So my husband started this. He's my publicist. He loves my books, and he talks to everybody about them. And we're on the bus, and he will just turn to some random person and say, "Do you like to read for fun?" That's a leading question, right?
Right.
And they'll say yes or no. If they say no, he just changes the topic and keeps talking to them, and is, that's fine. If they say yes, what kind of books do you like to read? They say sci-fi or fantasy, bada bing, bada boom. He says, well, my wife wrote a book. We have these bookmarks that have a QR code on the front, which is me talking about my books. I did a little video about you, and then shows the books that are in the series so far. And then on the back is another QR code. Now, remember, mine's a series. The first book in my series is free. If you scan this QR code, you can get the first book in the series for free. Well, why do I do that? Because it's a 9-book series. If I get them hooked here, I've got them for life, right?
Right.
And so this is working very well for us. We've made a number of sales with that. It requires some preparation to do it.
For sure.
But I'm using the digital universe to do it, but I'm also using face-to-face. And I think you need to have a combination of both things. Getting on a podcast. There's so many different ways that we can create traction for our books. My very first book signing was at a book club. Book clubs are great. If you can get your book into a book club, everybody in the book club will buy the book, number one. And number two, you can go and do a private book signing for the book club. What are they going to do? They're going to tell their friends.
Right.
And so that was really what launched me, was going to a book club. There are book clubs at your local library. Oftentimes community centers have book clubs. So if you've got a local community center, senior centers are great.
Yeah.
Seniors have time to read. And so many of them come from the generation that reading was the thing they did. And of course, once again, it depends on your genre and a lot of other things, but bookstores, there's a technique to getting your books into bookstores. It's not, I wrote a book. You need to put books on your shelves. And my first time, that was what I did. I brought my first book in and Barnes and Noble, and I said, I wrote this book. And they said, oh, really? So they went to look up the ISBN. They said, oh, you're published on Amazon. Bye.
Yeah.
But the next time I went in with a detail sheet, a sell sheet, and it had all the details. And it had my ISBN that was not published on Amazon.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I had interest because I was showing that I was a professional. All right. And that's, it takes some practice, and you're not going to do it, but start with your local bookstores. Let them know what you've got, and that you're willing to do author talks, and that you're willing to do book signings and all those kinds of things and various events that they're engaged in.
That makes total sense to me, for sure. Yeah. I think getting out there is one of the things that a lot, like you said, so many authors are introverted or they're like timid about doing it. But we found over and over throughout the course of, I mean, I've been publishing since 2010. And the more we dig into, publishing as an industry, I've talked with people like Joe Solari, and, we've looked at cumulative advantage and what that means for authors. And it does, it comes down to that relationship aspect, because we are such relationship beings that we need to, like, when it comes to story, it's such a personal thing that we want to know it's good. We want to know that the tale that's being told is going to be worth our time, instead of it just being something that's going to waste it, you know?
And
And so,
yeah, and the other thing about that is people love being able to say, I read this book. Oh, and I know the author,
yeah, there's
right?
something really special in that, isn't there?
Right.
That's
And
so cool.
being able to drop a name, right?
Yep.
That feels good to people. And every book signing that I go to, I have more that are coming, that are people coming back. But also every book signing I go to, I sell more of the first book in the series than any of the other books,
Sure. Yep.
because I get a chance to talk to people who've never heard of my books before. And it's one-on-one. And I make a big deal of it. I give away bookmarks, and you know, I, my husband has made this beautiful opening line for me. Hey, it's obviously they're in a bookstore, so they do like to read, but do they like to read for fun?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because that's my genre. And a lot of people say, no, I just read nonfiction books. Great. Have a great day. Good to be in a bookstore today, isn't it? And we go on. But when we get someone, I tell my little story about the house, the cat, and the key, and they go, oh, sounds good. And when I tell them it's family friendly, most of the people I find that are in bookstores are in there with their kids.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so they're loving that. And they go, they get the book, they bring it back, I sign it. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, because there's a connection that's been made. And so when they hear that I'm going to be at the bookstore again, they come back,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so it really does come down to relationships. It comes down to making a difference in your way in a community. And there's lots of ways of doing that. And you just kind of have to think about, so what kind of events happen in our community? We have art walks and various the farmers market and all kinds of stuff. And I don't usually get a booth for those things. What
Right.
do? I walk around and talk to people who are there,
Yeah.
right? And I have bookmarks with me, and we have those conversations. And it's amazing how many little notifications I get saying somebody else got the free book. Somebody
So
else
good.
got the free book. But also, there are those who say, yeah, I don't care about a free book. I'm just going to buy the whole series. And
Right.
they do, because they're the kind of people that thrive on series, right?
Yeah.
So we get both sides of that coin. And so get out. Yes, you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, and that's good, but get out and talk to the people who those stories are going to benefit.
I completely agree with that. When I first started, it was definitely harder to think about that, because you're like, oh, it's so scary to get out in front of other people, and then they're going to ask you, what's your book about? I don't know what my book's about. Like, you have to get good at that pitch of like what this story really resonates with. What are the tropes? What are the characters that these people may like?
And you
And
have to boil it down to, a paragraph,
mm-hmm.
and we in marketing, we call that an elevator pitch,
Yep.
right? Something that you could tell somebody from the time you started at the top floor and got down to the bottom floor where everybody gets off.
Yep.
And the nice thing about an elevator pitch is, if there's more than, you're talking to a certain person, but if there's more than one person in the elevator, they all get to hear it at once, because you got a captive audience.
That's true.
So, but, and that works on the bus too. As we're talking to one person about it, we have 3 or 4 other people ask for bookmarks.
Smart.
So
Smart.
that's fun.
Yeah.
But no, you should know, what is the point of your story? Why would anybody want to read it? And if you don't know, go back and read your story.
Right. Get clear on
Seriously.
it. Yeah.
And say, as a reader, what do I love most about this story? And how can I tell just enough of what the story's about to interest somebody without giving everything away?
Right.
And so, you have to sort out, and that was a process. It didn't happen overnight. Just to be fair, I consider myself a professional marketer, but that means, and at this point, a professional writer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the first whack at the bush brings you the result you want. That bird in the bush is going to stay there until you hit it just right.
Right.
Right. And so you need to pay attention to why are you writing the story in the first place? Because oftentimes that's a big clue as to why somebody else would enjoy the story.
Right. I
Right?
agree. Yeah.
But I have found that, bumps in the road notwithstanding, my author journey has been so much fun. Currently, I mentor a writers group in Salinas, California on Zoom, because I live in Washington State. Every month we sit down and we talk about writing. I was recently asked, and here's the point you want to get to in your writing career. I was recently requested by our local Barnes and Noble to come and do a series of writers' workshops at the Barnes and Noble.
Too cool. Good
When
job.
they start asking you, instead of you approaching them, something's working.
Right. Right.
So, and they come to me and say, I understand your book's coming out in May. When can you come and do a book signing so we can order the books in time?
Nice.
Okay. I've got 2 bookstores now that do that with me. And I've already got 3 book signings actually slated for May when the book comes out.
That's so great.
Yeah.
That is so great.
So, but that didn't happen overnight any more than writing the book happened overnight. It seems like every time my grandkids or my kids, like I said, we live in a multi-generational household, they come in and they see me sitting here playing Candy Crush or some stupid mindless game. I'm pretty sure they think that's what I do all day. Obviously, these books don't write themselves.
Right. And sometimes you just need a brain break.
Well, and if it's a mindless game, usually what am I thinking about? During playing this game, I'm thinking about next steps for my books, whether that's on the marketing side or on the writing side. And I have to shift hats,
Yeah.
but every once in a while I write a scene and go, yeah, that's a good one I could read at an author talk or something like that. Recently, I did one that was just so darn fun and is going to just be the kind of spice about 3/4 of the way through the current book. And I sat back from that and go, oh, I can hardly wait to read this out loud to somebody. So I read it to my husband, he is my alpha reader.
Yep.
And he sits down with me while I'm having the Word read the book to me while I'm editing. He sits down with me through that whole process because he can hardly wait for the next episode. So
Cute. My husband's like that as well. He likes to read as I'm writing. Yeah.
And it's great to have that kind of a support system. Not every author does, unfortunately. But yeah, my husband's my biggest fan. And that feels good, to know that he not only is okay with me writing, he encourages it, and he is out there promoting me constantly to people. He never goes anywhere without bookmarks.
That is so fun.
Yeah.
Well, knowing what you do now, do you have a message that you would love to tell your 16-year-old self, the one who wanted to be the author and be the writer, about what those dreams are going to end up evolving into about writing and maybe even some of the challenges ahead?
2 things, probably. One is be patient with yourself and recognize that a lot of things happen that you don't expect. And it's okay if you haven't made that goal immediately. And actually 3 things, because there's a corollary to that. And the thing that I tell people is never give up on your dream.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing I would say is pay attention. Pay
Yeah. Yeah.
attention to
Yeah.
what goes on around you. Pay attention to stories that you hear from people all around you, their experiences. Pay attention to world affairs. Recognize that we live in a story every
Right.
day. And when I first wrote this book, and one of my other daughter-in-laws read the book for the first time, she said, "Mom, why didn't you write this book 30 years ago?" I said, 30 years ago, I was raising 6 teenagers.
Isn't that
I had a
fun?
few things on my plate, and I hadn't had the experiences necessary for me to write these books at this time.
Mm.
Now, we have people like Poalini, who wrote his first book sitting in his classes when the teachers thought he was taking notes. He was writing his book. And good for him because they're great books. But that's not everybody. And you're not everybody. You're you. Be patient with yourself and recognize that every experience you have has potential for building the power and the richness of your books when you do write them.
I agree so, so much. That's so good because I think so many people are so wrapped up in what they think they should have, what they think they should be, how fast they think it should go, that they're missing a lot of what's happening around them. And so then it's almost like it pushes away the success or the stories because, like you just said, you didn't have the life experiences to be able to translate or to get it onto paper the way it needed to be. And the same goes for success. Sometimes we don't have the tools yet to have the success, to be able to maintain the success or whatever it is. And so we have to go through some of those challenges or lessons or
Or
whatever.
those little aha
Yeah.
moments where you go,
Yeah.
"Oh, I get it now."
Right? Right? So many of those. So many of those. Oh
Yes.
my goodness. Well, Bonnie, thank you so much for being a part of the show today. I appreciate your experiences and all that you have to tell us and offer, and obviously to learn more about your books. Where can my audience go to find out more about you and obviously get those books?
Okay, so I'm going to give your audience the same offer that I have on my books. They can get the first ebook for free by going to tda-hq.com. There'll be a little video on there that tells you how to get the books for free, and you just click on it. I do request that you give us the email just simply so I know that you're not a scammer or a spammer. And you can have that first book at no cost. My books are also available on all the usual places, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and most other places that distribute books have my books available that you can order. By all means, check with your local library because I am on Overdrive and Hoopla and pretty much all of the library apps. So you can read my books for free. So the free ebooks are available in 3 formats: the Kindle format, the Nook format, and PDF.
Awesome. Awesome. And do you have a website that they can check out as well?
Yes, it's dimensionalallianceheadquarters.com.
What a great URL to go to. What the heck? That is so cool.
Well,
I can tell a marketer hat was on for that one.
yeah, it's one of those things that over time just starts to come naturally. But yeah, I'm
Oh,
having fun
good.
with it. I'm loving doing it. And readers can by all means reach out to me. There's a place on the website said that's libraries and bookstores where they can go and they can order the detail sheets to put the books in their collections as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bonnie. Thanks for being a part of the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I've had a great time and I'm looking forward to seeing it. And, maybe we can do this again sometime.
Oh, of course. I would love to have you back. Guys, wasn't that awesome? When I first started talking with Bonnie, it was so funny because I'm like, wow, she's a really fascinating lady to talk about her books and everything that she's gone through. But the deeper we got into our conversation, the more humor came out of her, the more She started telling these great stories and really gave some golden nuggets for authors who are looking to do things a little bit differently in the marketing space. I know for me, it even triggered some great ideas that I'm like, you know what? I should do that. I should do that. Like those bookmarks, right? Having QR codes that go to a video that allow them to then download the free book. I mean, what a great idea. We have local, like little craft fairs around the Brainerd Lakes area, which is where I'm at, all the time. And I'm always thinking, well, I don't want to have to spend my entire day there and like have a booth and do all the things. And when I talk to her and she's like, I don't get a booth. I just have bookmarks and I wander around and talk to people and hand them my bookmarks with information. I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. Why have I never thought of that? Why have I never thought of that? And I know that you would too. Now, again, like the sell sheets, bringing the sell sheets to bookstores and letting them know that you could do author talks, that you could do author signings, that here are your books. Are your books available through Ingram Spark so that Barnes & Noble can load them up? Did you know that that was a thing? Like there's all these little tips and tricks that she gave inside this golden episode that I was so amazed by the time we were done. I was like, wow, she is a brilliant lady. So at any rate, I hope that you go over to dimensionalallianceheadquarters.com and check out Bonnie and her books. I hope that you also go over to our show notes, which is authorrevolution.org/239. I'll have all the links there, but that'll include the link to her special page that gives you the free download and her video and all the good things there as well, because you obviously don't want to miss that. I mean, get started on this first book. It sounds awesome, right? Maybe I'm biased because I love science fiction and fantasy, but it's my jam and I can't wait to go check it out myself. So there you have it. Bonnie is amazing. I love her. I hope you enjoyed her talk. Also, I want to give you a quick heads up as we head into the end of June. I can't believe, guys, it's already when you're listening to this, it airs on the 12th of June. And already on Friday of this month, Friday, June 14th, I'm going to be hosting a masterclass. It's Quantum Manifestation for Authors. If you haven't signed up and gotten in on that, and you're interested in learning how quantum physics interplays with manifestation, you're going to want to head over to the show notes yet again, because the link will be there. But that's not all. I am in the process of launching a brand new course. It's called Own Voice Audiobooks. And we're going to be doing an AI version as well. Yeah, there's an add-on if you want to be able to learn how to use 11 Labs for your audiobooks. But if you want to check it out, if you want to get involved, head over to the show notes. There's going to be links to do all the things. And if you want audiobooks to be your next big thing, which I know you do because audiobooks are a huge, huge market space for authors, and we need to be more seen, more visible in that space, right? Then you're going to want to get involved in that audiobook course as well. So guys, so many good things coming up, so many good things, awesome things coming our way. I have some big news, big news that I'm going to be sharing next week. I'm going to be discussing kind of a status update, a status report, if you will, of what's been going on in my life since I started meditating every single day. There have been days that have been absolutely insanely phenomenal, and there have been days that were kind of like meh, but there have been some big things that have come in the middle of it all. So I can't wait to share that with you next week. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope this episode has brought you some new and interesting ways to look at your author career. So go forth and start your author revolution.
Okay, indie author, Carissa Andrews with Author Revolution here. We need to have a chat. I know you want to build a sustainable long-term author career, but you can't do it just by wishing for it. It would be nice, yes, but alas, you gotta do the work. By that I mean you need to reframe the way you look at your author business so that you can write and publish more frequently. With Rapid Release Roadmap, my signature online course, I'll help you learn not only how to make writing and publishing 4 books a year seem easy, but I'll help you master your prolific author mindset so that you can clear away all the negative self-talk that's holding you back. Trust me, I have been there. To learn more about Rapid Release Roadmap, head over to rapidreleaseroadmap.com. Over there, I'll give you all the insights on what you'll find inside the course. Plus, I walk you through all of the bonuses you're going to get based on the payment option you choose. And yes, there are some good ones in there, even if I say so myself. Once again, head over to rapidreleaseroadmap.com to learn more and sign up today.